Hey, thanks for tuning in, everyone. This is my friend Molly Dose. She is on a mission to reduce the stigma of mental illness and educate women, men, and teens about symptoms, diagnoses, and treatment. She is a trained youth minister, a massage therapist, and she's in the process of starting up a mental health nonprofit. She brings compassion, honesty, and authenticity through sharing her personal experiences of living with bipolar. She engages her audiences with humor, truthfulness, and authenticity. She has spoken to women's groups in Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin, as well as junior and senior high school students in Minnesota. Molly shares a hopeful message of living with a mental illness. When she's not speaking, she enjoys laughing with her 3 kids and husband, walking, biking, and taking vacations. Hello, Molly. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing super awesome. I have my Sunday hair don't care going on.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to sleep in this morning. So I'm just owning it.
So you're rested. You're well rested and feeling
I'm very
good.
well rested. Absolutely.
Love it. I'm all about it. I don't get to do that. So props to you, sister.
Yeah. When your kids get older, they will sleep in with you. It is magical.
Yeah. Yes. Right. I can't wait for that time. But I shouldn't say that. I will wait for that time. But
yes. Enjoy every single stage and moment.
I will. We went to a movie this morning. It was fabulous.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay, so tell us something interesting about you and your life to get us started.
Yeah. So it was actually 20 years ago. I studied abroad in China for 4 months. And before I selected to go to China, I was going to kind of play it safe. And I was going to go to Norway because I had already been to Sweden when I was in high school.
Okay.
And I just loved that, kind of Nordic culture.
Yeah.
And then one of my college friends said to me, why would you go to Norway for a study abroad trip? Like, there's nothing wrong with Norway, but they speak English and you could go there anytime. Like, you would never go to China by yourself. So why don't you go to China? And I thought, God, I guess that's worth thinking about. So I went to the orientation meeting and all of the stories were amazing. Like, people were really having like deep connections with Chinese people when they were studying abroad. And I was like, you know what? I'm in. And I just went in like 2 feet full into the experience. And I really loved every single minute. The culture, the food, the people, the language. So I like learned the language from nothing.
Yeah.
And
wow.
3.5 months in, it was time for us to travel on our own. And I had like practiced like all of the different phrases that I would need to use. And that's what we had been learning. Yeah. And I traveled on my own for 2 weeks and like nothing bad happened. I was always able to get a hotel or a room and get my food and whatever. So It was amazing. I would go back in a heartbeat. Absolutely.
That's cool. So how old were you for that?
Let's see. I was 21.
Oh,
I was
cool.
20 years old. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was my senior year in college at St. Ben's. So.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's awesome. So I'm very Norwegian. So I was like, ooh, Norway, that would be super cool. But in the scheme of things about like, taking in culture and like learning from the experience, it's probably a better idea to try something totally out of your comfort zone and just get thrown into it feet first, like you said. So good for you for being like, I'd think about it. And then you thought about it and you made the decision and that's what you did. Like,
right.
That's cool. And you loved it.
Oh my gosh. It was just, I remember our professors telling us like, yes, it's difficult to transition to a culture that is completely unlike anything you've ever experienced. But they would tell us during our trip, they're like, but to be honest and fair, you're going to have a harder time coming back to the United States. And that was the harder part. we had learned from some other people that however long you're in another country that is so different from yours, it will often take the same amount of time that you were gone to transition back. And
Oh, wow.
so we were gone for 4 months, and it definitely took 4 months. And thankfully
Really?
I like sort of, like transitioned just in time to graduate from college. And like then now I had my next challenge, my first job.
Yeah.
But it was just the best experience. I would highly recommend anybody who is, has that opportunity, if it's for 2 weeks or 2 months or a year, whatever it is,
Yeah.
go be in another culture, as like taking different trips and going different places
Yeah.
and experiencing things you never would have experienced.
Yeah. Take those chances.
Yes. And it fills your cup in a different way, and you get to see the world from a different angle, which I think is really important as multicultural as we are, to take those opportunities.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think I agree with that very much so. So that is a fun, interesting fact about you. I love it.
Right.
So obviously that is very fearful, but so let's dive in about fear in your story more. So tell us about a significant time in your life when fear held you back from living your life fully.
So it was almost 7 years ago. I didn't know it at the time, but I was having my first manic episode, and I'd had a rough, like, 8 months leading up to it. I had been in a couple of psych units in hospitals, and all of the doctors kept saying it's depression, it's depression. Like, you just need to, heal that part of yourself. And so I thought it was also depression. And I never really researched bipolar. One family friend said, I really think you have bipolar. And I was always afraid of it, based on barely anything.
Right.
Like, my first hospitalization. Well, right. My first hospitalization, I remember asking about this other person on the unit. She would always have her headphones or her earbuds in, and she would be walking fast up and down the hallway. And finally I asked one of the nurses, I'm like, if you don't mind my asking, like, what does she have? And they're like, well, she has bipolar. And I was like, well, I'm not like that. So I must not have bipolar. And so there was like this underlying fear, but I didn't even want to look at it. And I think I was afraid of having something more severe than depression.
Yeah.
But during this manic time, it basically lasted about 4 to 5 months, everything was erratic. I was out of control. I had started my massage business, which that's just a fine decision. There's nothing wrong with that. But I jumped in super deep, like financially, jumped in with business partners that I didn't really know. And, and then all these other behaviors were happening. And I just thought, oh, I'm just having a really great time.
Right.
And so I like to get real with people about what happened during my manic, because I'm not ashamed of it. Like, these things happened, but I cheated on my husband with multiple other men. I spent a ton of money. I racked up credit card debt. And I was just doing all these things that were out of character.
Yeah.
And my husband knew that, like, after I told him about the cheating, he knew that something was really wrong with me. But then the next time I went into the hospital, just like a week later after telling him, that psychiatrist said, oh, she's having a midlife crisis. She doesn't want to be married. She doesn't want to be a mom, or she doesn't want to be a full-time mom. And he came into the hospital, and we had a session with the therapist. And the therapist was basically echoed the same thing that the psychiatrist had said. Molly's having a midlife crisis. She doesn't want to be married, blah, blah, blah. And my husband knew that something was wrong. And he told my best friend. And she's like, yeah, I can tell that Molly's not herself.
Right.
And he's like, I think something really bad is going to happen. And she reached out to our family friend who understands mental illness very well. And they were all afraid. But there was nothing that my husband could do because I was 35 in the state of Minnesota and most other states. You can't force someone to go to the hospital over the age of 18. You can't force them to get help. It's all HIPAA, it's privacy. And so a few weeks later, nothing's better. My husband and I are separated. I'm trying to maintain this, startup business. But things aren't going super well, as most businesses don't do super great in the first few months of being in existence. And I just felt awful, and I was getting more depressed. Even though I was still manic, there can be these mixed states of feeling elated and then feeling very, very depressed.
So it's very much a roller coaster.
Oh, that is the perfect description. It is the highs and the lows. And anybody who has bipolar who has been diagnosed, they'll be able to tell you, it's seasonal, or it can be erratic, and it can go up and down in a matter of hours or days. And it's different for each person with bipolar. So there's no one way that it plays out for somebody. But then that fear. And for me, where the fear really landed was all of these doctors have said I have depression. My depression isn't being treated well. They haven't figured it out. They haven't found the right medication. I've tried, by that time, I'd probably tried 4 different medications for depression, which is not all of the medications available.
Right.
But for me, it felt like a lot. I'd seen many therapists. I'd been in the hospital 3 times. And that fear turned into giving up hope for me.
Right. Yeah.
And so at the end of April in 2012, I woke up that morning. We were supposed to take our kids to preschool, and we would carpool with another family. And the other family, the mom called and said, we don't need a ride today. Her son is sick. And it was like the switch went off for me. And the switch basically turned off all possibilities for my life. And I thought, this depression's so bad, but they can't treat it. And just my life is not worth living. And my husband shouldn't have to put up with a wife who is sick all the time. And my kids definitely shouldn't have to put up with a mom, who's not well. And I just figured it would be better if I weren't here. And I prayed to God, and I said, I need you to help me. I just want to be with you. I'm a very faithful spiritual person, and I believe in God, and I believe in heaven and all of that. And I literally was praying to God to get me to heaven. So I looked on my phone for ways to kill myself. Everything that came up was 1-800 suicide hotline, call this number, get some help, all of this. I didn't want any of the help. I felt so hopeless. And so I took about 3 handfuls of antidepressants and sleep meds. And then I just laid in our bed. And our kids were upstairs watching TV. And I just figured it'll be fine. I'll pass out. The kids can call 911. Our girls were 4 at the time, 4.5.
Yeah.
So I always like to tell people about that switch being off and that I wasn't in my right mind.
Right.
And I firmly believe that anyone who attempts or completes a suicide is not in their right mind, because
Absolutely.
it's not possible. Because if you were thinking rational thoughts, you would call the suicide hotline, or you
Right.
would call a friend. You would do something that would make it better.
Yeah.
And so, as I was laying in the bed, my heart started to beat really, really, really fast. And I'm like, oh my gosh, something's really wrong. Now, mind you, I wanted to die, right? But
Right.
now I'm worried that my heart is beating fast.
Yes.
And it's not like I'd done all this research to, do you know what
Right. Like
it was irrational.
in the moment. You're like, okay. You
Right.
had
Like I just,
your break and you were just like, this is what I'm gonna do. And then
right,
now you were second guessing it.
right, thankfully. And
Yes.
so my heart's beating super fast. I go upstairs and I take a couple Tylenol. And I'm like, well, that'll help, right? Now with all of these
Yeah.
meds that I've taken. And so I go back downstairs and my heart is still beating fast. And it was like the switch turned back on for me, thankfully. And I realized very quickly, I cannot have my kids call 911.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot have them be scarred by what I've done here. And so I called 911. A police officer came. My kids were like, why is there a police officer here? And,
Right.
they're little. The girls are 4.5. Our son was 3. And I said, mommy's sick and they're coming, to help. And then the ambulance came and my blood pressure went super, super low. Like, they were very concerned.
It
Got me
was
to the
doing
hospital.
the pills were doing its job that you wanted it to. It was
Right,
making you tank.
right. And so got to the hospital, had to detox. My husband came. He talked to a social worker for a long time about everything. He
Yeah.
called my parents that day and he's like, I need you to know what's really going on with Molly. Like, this can't be in the dark anymore. And so my parents said, if you're okay with it, you take care of the kids and we're going to take care of Molly. Like, we will handle all of her medical care and we're going to get this figured out. And so I was fine with that because I'm like, my husband and I are separated. Obviously, I'm not being like a quality wife or quality mom right now. And I need to take care of myself.
It was in the best interest of everyone. And what's great is that everyone got to step up to be who you needed in your life. Like your husband taking care of the kids, you needed him to do that job. Your parents stepping up to say that they were going to help take care of you. Like the people that you needed during that time stepped up and were who you actually needed.
Yeah, definitely. And so I remember in the ER, I feel crappy, right? Like, my body is trying to detox.
Yeah.
And the doctor came in. I said, can you please give me something for this? And he looked at me and he's like, I can't give you anything. Like, you have taken everything. And I was like, oh, right. Like, I'd kind of almost not already like forgotten, but I didn't want to be in pain anymore, which was a good sign. Like,
right.
I want to live, So the next morning I wake up in the hospital because when somebody has a suicide attempt in the state of Minnesota, you're required to be in the hospital for 72 hours.
Okay.
And so either the ER or the hotel, the ER or the hospital, you're required to be there so that they can start to get a sense of what's going on, what services do you need, what do you need to do after you leave here? Is it safe for you to go home? Is it better for you to go outpatient, inpatient? They have to figure all that out.
Yeah.
So the next morning, it was my 4th psychiatrist at the same hospital, and now I'd been there 4 times in 11 months. And he comes in, he sits across the room from me, and he says, I've looked over all your charts. I've talked with the social worker who talked with your husband yesterday at length, and I believe you have bipolar. And I started crying because I was relieved. Like,
that there was something other than depression as an answer.
Well, right. And now we can figure out like these ups and downs.
Yeah.
And he sees me crying. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry, for your diagnosis. I said, no, that's not what I'm crying about. Like, I'm relieved. I'm like, if you want to like cry about anything, cry about your other psychiatrist here, who I did ask, do I have bipolar? And they didn't believe me. And I'm, telling them. And so then what transpired for me was definitely a time of, fearlessness of, okay, now I know I have bipolar and I'm going to be living with bipolar for the rest of my life. I know this. This isn't a passing phase.
Yeah.
And I need to learn. I need to learn about this, and I need to figure it out. Yeah. And I need to figure out how it manifests in me. Because as I had seen other people with bipolar.
Right, it's different.
It's different. Just like no two people are exactly alike the way that they experience anxiety or depression or schizophrenia, anything. Like, we're all uniquely made. And so it began this process that I would say I'm still on that.
Sure.
Because there's new research that comes out all the time. There are new medications. There are new things. And so now I have like a very trusted psychiatrist who I can bounce things off of and say, hey, I heard this about this medication. Would that be true in my case? Yeah. My husband, we're back together, obviously. Maybe not obviously, but that's always like obvious in the presentation I give. But he's totally my partner in this. And I know I'm super blessed because a lot of other people who have gone through this stuff, often divorce is.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a huge, with the process that you were going through and during your manic episodes and stuff, like the cheating and the lying and the racking up the credit cards, like that alone, people would be like, nope, you did this to me, blah, 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 I'm making it about them. And the fact that he can see that, oh, that wasn't really my wife. That wasn't her consciously making those decisions to ruin our marriage. It was right. Just what it was. And right. And the fact that you guys could come back around to it, like that's powerful. And like you can get through anything if you can get through those kinds of struggles, in my eyes. Like that's
yeah,
that's huge.
And
so
go ahead.
How long ago was this? 7 years ago, you said?
7 years.
Yeah.
I seriously, I look back and I'm like, really? Like, it's already been 7 years? And there's this thing I read a long time ago. Like, we reinvent ourselves every 7 years.
Well, hey, girl. It's about time.
Like a one to, your kids, 0 to 7, elementary school and, preschool, I'll figure all that stuff out. Then 7 to 14, well, now you're a teenager and you stepped into that. Yeah. 14 to 21, you're stepping into adulthood.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is it's the coolest thing. And for me, it's full circle.
Yeah.
Even when I was diagnosed, I never said to myself, why me? I didn't. I'm like, this is what I have. This is what's going on. And I started asking God, basically, like, okay, how are you going to use this?
Yeah. How do you live with it?
Yeah. What are you going to do with it? What do you want me to do with this? And that's where it gets into being an advocate for other people, for speaking, for, you know, doing the day job that I'm doing right now, working with elementary kids who have emotional and behavioral disorders.
Yeah. I got goosebumps just now, like just thinking about how the path that you're walking with, excuse me, with everything that you've already went through and continue to move through with having bipolar and in the directions that you're going with it. So you were talking before about the new fear of like, okay, well now how do I live with this? And you were going to start talking about that a little bit. Moving into like, okay, now you have the right diagnoses, like moving through like, okay, now where's the fear of like, how is this going to play out with your family and your life? And go ahead and dive into a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. So definitely in our family life, one of my psychiatrists told me after I was diagnosed that I needed to have 2 to 3 super trusted people who see me, you know, often enough to see my behaviors. And if my behaviors are changing, that they can tell me or they can call my psychiatrist. And it was actually just a couple of years ago, I noticed, so I had a massage business, and part of giving massages is you have a lot of quiet time to yourself, you know, as you're massaging people. And I noticed while I was giving a massage that like my mind was kind of racing, like going from thought to thought. And then I was kind of thinking about, golly, I've kind of spent a little bit more money lately on things that I didn't really need. You know, they were like little luxuries.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, that's like 2 things, 2 of like my triggers for a possible mania. And so right after I got done giving that massage, I called my husband at work and I said, hey, here's what I'm noticing. And he said, yeah, and I'm noticing that when you get home, you're not usually spending a lot of time with us. Like you're kind of just doing your own thing, you know, like laying down in bed or playing a game on your phone, and you're just not engaging with us. Sure. And he's like, and that's also one of your triggers, is that when you're more manic, you just want to do your own thing. Like you don't want to have to.
How many triggers are there? Is there a certain
there's
amount?
Like 18 symptoms.
Okay.
For bipolar. And kind of like I said before, and it's still like I still process it, is what are my specific things that get ramped up, you know? And
that's
I think that's key for anybody living with any mental illness, is as you can kind of step out of and step back and look at, okay, so for me, this is when the depression gets worse. Or if there was something negative that happened at work and then I came home and there was something negative at home and now my anxiety starts to raise, like what can I do to help that part? So self-awareness is huge. And that creates actually resiliency within going through a mental illness. Which is so important because it is different for every single person. So I think there was also like in our family life, like with our kids, we're open with them. For example, our girls now are in 6th grade. They're 11 and a half, and I speak to 7th grade groups at their school for their health classes. So in less than a year, my girls will be in health class. And so we've started having the dialogue of, do you want to be in that classroom when I give my talk? They haven't decided yet, but we have decided that I will give them my talk here at home because they don't know all of the details yet, right? They're pretty young to know about cheating, to even know kind of what that is. And that cheating is actually hypersexuality is a symptom of bipolar, and that's how it can manifest. So oftentimes when I'm giving a talk, I'll say to people, hey, be aware of the girlfriend who's telling you that she's sleeping around or having an affair. Like, dig deeper.
Yeah.
That could be a mental illness, you know?
Right.
Um, so we talk about, my kids will forget the name of bipolar. It's hilarious. And they'll like call it something else. I can't remember right now what it is, but they're like, do you have that thing like the bipolar or the unipolar, or like it's like so funny. And I'll be like, yeah, I live with bipolar, and we have smaller conversations, I would say,
Yeah.
about it. But I know that as our kids get older, my husband and I are very sensitive to how might this manifest. Because the chances for one of our kids to have to live with bipolar is 1 in 3, and we have 3 kids.
Right.
And oftentimes it doesn't manifest itself until teen years, early 20s.
So you really start to have anxiety and things you have to really work through, probably, right? Like that's when it would
Right.
start to
Right.
show.
Mm-hmm. And I think when it often shows up when life gets real. Like,
Yep.
I can look back now, and yes, I had symptoms. For me, the anxiety that I was having in my early 20s, that was actually probably more mania.
Okay.
But it wasn't manifesting in the same way.
Sure.
But like, I wasn't sleeping. I would wake up super early. I had all this energy, and I would sweat, and I wouldn't know what to do with all the energy. I probably could have been a marathon runner.
That's a great idea. Anyone that's listening that needs ideas for getting rid of
Right.
the energy like that, like go run a marathon.
But that definitely, I was too afraid to get out of bed.
Yeah.
Like, it was just so like gripping that
Yeah.
I couldn't even move at times.
Right.
Where definitely other times, like, move, and I need movement in my day, even if it's just like 10 minutes of walking, or 10 minutes of like a little Zumba, or like dancing to a song. I even count if I dance in my van. Like, I'm driving, but I'm moving and grooving.
Yep. I like it. That's
That
awesome.
counts for something.
Yeah. It releases the energy. Absolutely. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
So do you regularly go see a therapist still, and like you still are constantly working on yourself and moving through like using the professionals and all those things, correct?
Absolutely. So the key things to my stability, which is what once I got diagnosed and I understood what stability was, and that it meant being in the middle and not having these huge ups and downs and roller coasters.
Yeah.
See my psychiatrist typically 2 to 3 times a year, because I'm stable. Like, if somebody isn't stable, then you need to be seeing your psychiatrist more often, and they will often help determine how often that needs to be.
Sure.
My psychiatrist understands that, my health insurance barely covers her visit anymore. So we try to stretch it, if we can.
Yeah. But again, you're very conscious of your triggers and your symptoms, like, and how it would lead up to that. So once you're starting to question it, like, you need to dive deeper and reflect and do all the work on it, like you've been doing for the last 7 years.
Right. Precisely. She also is great about, she's in private practice, so I can call her and leave her a message. So like 2 years ago when I was having some manic symptoms, I called her and I said, left a message, here's what they are. She called me back. She's like, all right, we're going to up your lithium, and then I want to see you in a month to see if it's helping. And by a month later, and I'm on, an elevated dose of lithium, it's all good. It's totally fine. I see my therapist we're not like on a really tight schedule right now. I go in when I need her.
Yeah.
But like, for example, like this last week, I was like, oh yeah, I need to go in. Like, I'm in the first month of this new job, and yes, I love it, and it's very stressful. And so for me to like process and unpack that.
And it's winter in Minnesota. You're in Minnesota, I'm in Wisconsin, like, and it's winter.
Yeah.
So honestly, I feel like that just has a lot to do with emotions altogether too. People
Yes.
are just
Completely. Absolutely. And so, thirdly, I take my medications every day. The way I do my meds right now, the way that my psychiatrist has prescribed them, I take some in the morning and some in the evening. One of the huge things for people who live with bipolar is sleep. Some doctors out there actually consider bipolar a sleep disorder because when you're manic, you barely need any sleep. When you're feeling depressed, you feel like you need a lot of sleep.
Right.
And so to maintain the sleep at a consistent level is actually super important. So like I do take sleep meds and I, take them responsibly. And then I have 2 other meds that I take for stability. And I actually learned just a couple of years ago that lithium, which is a pretty common medication for people living with bipolar, it's actually also an anti-suicide medication.
Oh.
I didn't know that.
Right.
But it makes sense because I haven't had any suicidal thoughts in almost 7 years.
Okay.
And I've been consistently taking that medication. So it's fascinating what you continue to learn about your disorder.
Yeah.
And then another big one, 2 other big ones for me are my support system. My husband, our kids, my family, my good friends, having that tight inner circle of people who get me, who know me. And sometimes that shifts and changes, of course, like we all have friendships that grow stronger or, change, and maybe we don't get to see each other very often, whatever it is. But having those people that really understand you. And then for me, the biggest one is my faith in God. And almost every Sunday, I like cry at church where we're singing different songs. Like this morning, one of the lines was, "Death has no grip on me." And I'm like, I've been really close to that. And my life is so far from even thinking about that anymore. Like the gratitude, of the simple things. I'll say to my husband, like our girls are screaming at us, right? They're preteens and the hormones are super strong. And I'll be like, isn't it great that our kids are healthy? Like they might be raging against us, but they're healthy.
Yeah.
And so the gratitude.
It's powerful that you can find the things to be grateful in those chaotic days where that is definitely just going on. The fact that you can find a way to pull that out is huge.
It is. And like this morning I went and picked my son up at he goes to like the kids program at church.
Yeah.
So before I took this job at this school, I subbed at a bunch of different schools. And it happened to be that one of the kids that I worked with, a kindergartner, he actually transferred to the school that I'm working at now. And just seeing his transformation, like he is polite, he's kind, he's not kicking, he's not screaming, like he's had this huge transformation. And this morning he was in that kids program. And he came up to me and he's like, "Hi, Ms. Molly." And I was like, "Hi, buddy. Can I give you a little hug?" He's like, "Yeah." That's like a kid who wouldn't hug anybody, like in September. And so to me, it's about like, not only like gratitude for my life, right? Like not only gratitude for my life, but now in my job, like seeing these kids be transformed And I feel like very called to where I'm at in my life right now, and just very called to like taking the time to, start a nonprofit. And I don't know where that's going to go yet. Like, I have some ideas, but stillness. Winter is a perfect time for stillness.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So the question that I love to ask everyone is moving through, like, you're really good at knowing your, the process that you need to follow and the support systems, and you have it all kind of worked out that works for you. And so you're obviously living more fearlessly and living with bipolar. And so in the next 5 years, where do you see yourself? I mean, obviously we're talking about your nonprofit, and, in 5 years, your kids are going to be
driving.
Yeah. So where do you see yourself 5 years from today?
So I think the first thing for me is our village. Like the village, the community that we're in, and how we're going to help each other. Like,
That's awesome.
I already foresee, like, my cousin's wife, she just loves our girls. And I can see her being the one helping them with driving, because she already has 2 teenagers that are driving. So she like has wisdom in that area, where I think my husband and I are a little bit of control freaks, and we're going to like install the brake on the passenger side. But like, we joined a church about a year ago, and switched that for us, and that's been very life-giving. So yeah, our kids will be teenagers, and truly for me, like, loving them through each stage. Like, I'm honored to be their mom, and I'm super honored that I'm still here to be their mom. Like that does not get lost on me, very often. And anytime there's, something that I see, or somebody's loss, I get pretty close to that, because, and seeing the other side of that. Like, I've been blessed to be given a second chance.
You are blessed. And so is your family for still having you. And so are we for you sharing your story right now, because I don't know who is going to need to hear this, but there's someone that needs to hear your story. And maybe it's even just the lithium part that they could bring up to a doctor, or anything that you said. It could be anything that you're helping someone with, even if we have one person. Like,
and that's always my goal. It's one person at a time. I don't need to like save millions. But it's one person at a time. Also 5 years from now, I want what I see happening is that I'm not just going to write a book about living with bipolar. I already see a trilogy, and I've started some of the work on that. And I want to travel. I want our family to be able to travel with me, to some of those things too. But I have such a passion for speaking, inspiring, and motivating people. And so books with speaking is definitely something I see in the next 5 years. And I also know that I'm okay that if that needs to be postponed a little bit because of the ages of our kids, super cool with that. Like, God's going to get pretty dang clear about all of those things. Like, I just really, really, really clear. Like, I know that it's in me, and I know
you're very
that
open to it. When the time is right, and when it's presenting itself, you'll be open to what is going to be there.
Yes, absolutely. And then, like, who knows, like, what my day job will be, like, in 5 years. I can easily see myself doing this type of work And maybe it'll be something where I'll decide to say, hey, if I go back and get some additional training, maybe I want to be a special ed teacher, working with EBT. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I know that I've been super blessed to work the same hours that my kids are in school. So like right now we're in the middle of a 4-day weekend. So Friday we went to the Science Museum. Yesterday we hung out with friends. Tomorrow my super best childhood girlfriend who totally advocated for me, she's coming over with her little boy.
Yay.
So, like, I just really feel like, yeah, God just keeps like putting the right things in place. And it's my job to like surrender to what that is. And I've never been that kind of girl to say, well, you got to surrender. I've been like,
yes,
I believe, and everybody does it differently. You know what I mean? And just
100%.
For me right now, like just following where God wants me to go. But
Absolutely.
those are definitely some big things that I see. Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
awesome. I'm so excited for the next 5 years to just unravel and see. I can't
For
wait
both
to
of us.
I can't wait to follow up and follow through with the guests that have already been on here and continue to grow that connection with each of you and see like how your stories about fear and moving through them unravel in the next 5 years, like even in the next year, like in the next 6 months. I want to be retouching with everyone and seeing like where everyone's at. I think that's going to be so powerful to just continue that. So where can everyone connect with you, Molly?
Yeah. So I'm on Facebook as Molly Dose, which is straight up my name. And in the process of, starting this nonprofit that I'm like surrendering to, whatever it will be, I do still post like helpful things about mental health on my personal page until, another page is created.
Yes.
But it's really interesting because in this process and transformation, I realized that when I was trying to do a different nonprofit, that I wasn't posting to my personal page about mental health. And then as soon as I started doing that again, like people like reaching out and saying, oh, thanks for that post. I really needed it.
Yeah.
And so I think in that, I want to share with other people that whatever your passion is, share it. Share it on your personal page. I also really encourage people, hey, if you have a story about mental illness, share it. And share it
with us. Like
share it with us. And you know what? Be fearless. Like have the courage to I just convinced in our culture right now, more vulnerability.
Yeah. Show up, be you, be raw. Like that is literally the epitome of like what I tell people now, like just show up, be yourself, be extra. I don't care. Like I love extra. It's great. But if you don't show up, no one's going to know how great you are regardless. So just show up, be you. And
people don't connect to the perfect in you.
No.
Absolutely. Like, do you look at the Kardashians and say, oh, I am just like them because my makeup's perfect all the time? No. Like, you connect to the people. I'm not saying anything bad about the Kardashians, but I'm just giving a point that, like, people connect to vulnerability.
Right.
Like, when
your story, like, that's how you find the real connections with people. So,
I got to share this super cute story.
Yeah.
So, I sold my massage business this last December. And so half of our garage is stuff from my massage business. And I've been selling things on like, the Facebook, whatever those sites are, selling sites. And I have this fake ficus tree. And it was really nice. And I was like, cool, here's what I'm selling it for. I literally had like 6 people show interest, and then they would never follow through. And that was just kind of my first experience of like not a lot of follow through, but I figured, oh, it's cold. People don't want to come out, whatever, it's fine. So this gal, Liz, right away in her first message, she was like, hey, I'm really interested. like what part of Shakopee are you in? Blah, 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 whatever. And I was like, oh, like she's actually interested like in buying this. Well, great. So then last weekend it was snowing again. And she's like, well, maybe I can come on Wednesday. I was like, oh, perfect. That sounds great. I put it on my calendar, but my calendar didn't remind me. And I was like talking with my son's school teacher after school. And then I got a message from her like, hey, I'm here. And I'm like, oh my God, like I crapped. Like that was already 10 minutes ago. I forgot. I'm like, I'm on my way. I'll be there in like 4 minutes. And she's like, take time. Like, no problem. And I'm like, those are always the people that make me curious. Like the calm people, right? So I pull up in my driveway. It's this cute Prius. I used to have a Prius. Love Priuses. And she's adorable. She's got like reddish hair like me and just like super cute. And, I'm getting the tree for her. And then I like asked her a question. I don't remember what it was. And probably about work or something, or like, where was she coming from? She's like, oh yeah, I was speaking in Eden Prairie today. I was like, oh, what kind of speaking do you do? She's like, I'm a mental health speaker. What? Who do you work for? What are you doing? And she works for a national.
I got goosebumps.
Right? She works for NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, which is a super great page to check out. It's nami.org. They have everything for mental illnesses. So if you want to educate yourself, like they're one of the top places to educate yourself. So we ended up having like this 30-minute conversation. Like my fingers are frozen. We're just like chatting. And then she's like, oh, well, you could totally speak like in this, particular thing. I'm like, yeah, I've applied for that before, but I'd like really love to do that. And she's like, oh, I'll totally get you connected on your number. And I'm like, we just like kept hugging each other. Like we were supposed to meet. Like you were the 7th person who wanted the ficus tree and like actually came. And like she had to get a new ficus tree because her cat destroyed her other one. I mean, it was just a stitch. And I'm just like, isn't this cool? Like there are no coincidences.
No, everything is just by design. The design is all wigglies and craziness and like it's all over. Totally. It's not a straight line. So that's so cool.
Not at all. It was amazing. So now I'm like, P.S. we are getting together for coffee because they speak in high schools a lot. I speak in middle schools a lot. And they want to get into middle schools. So I'm like, well, maybe we can like partner up and, like she's going to be able to speak at more places than I am right now just because I'm, working full time.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh,
that's so cool. She can be, you guys could be speaker sisters, hook each other up and be like, hey, I found this. Let's do it together.
Right? That'd be awesome.
Yeah. That's so cool. Aw, I'm glad you shared that one story. Just just trust your intuition and show up because you just don't know. And really, like, a lot of the times it's the time that we don't want to show up for certain things and we're like, oh, I'm just too tired. It's too cold to go outside and get that tree. Like,
right.
Those are the times that we end up meeting the people that we're like, God, I think I was supposed to meet you today. Like, I really feel that. And I've been feeling the same way when I've been meeting certain people out in public, like having face-to-face connections with people. It's just so powerful. And when you actually open up and talk to people on a real level, you never know what kind of a connection you're making with them. So I think that's huge.
Exactly.
Very cool.
Couldn't agree more.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time, Molly. This was fantastic. I'm so glad that you agreed to come share your story on here and pour into us a little bit more about you. And I can't wait for the viewers to get a hold of this. And if you guys have any questions or just want to reach out and give Molly some love, please absolutely do so. She's fantastic. So Molly, again, thank you so much for your time on this Sunday.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Yes, absolutely.
You too. Have fun with those kids.
Yes. Remember to love yourself and live fearlessly.
Awesome. Thank you.